Back again, YouTube, and welcome back to the coding workshop. On tonight's episode, we're going to be building out our simple session class as part of our building a framework application or project. And I want to jump straight into it, but before I do that, I want to actually, hope you guys can see the difference now between the last set of videos and this videos. I've adjusted the screen, and you should be seeing this a lot better in terms of how big text are on the screen. So if you're using a mobile device or a tablet, hopefully you'll be able to follow along better. And even for people who's using laptops on desktop, you should benefit from this as well, because it will be a lot bigger on your screen, so you could follow along a lot better. So again, like I said before, I haven't changed anything. It's still the same from where we left off. Again, description down in links down in the description for the project over on GitHub. So jump on that. I'm going to be pushing this session class after we'll finish building it. So it will be there available, ready for you when this video is finished. So sessions. What are sessions? I mean, in layman terms, session is a way to store information in variables that we can use across multiple pages on the website. And I'm going to sort of give you my interpretation of how the process works. So you go to a website, and what happens is a request then gets sent to the server where your script is on. The server then sends back a response containing a unique ID, which we refer to as a session ID. And this basically identifies your current session. So at this point, I'm going to point out that one of the main difference between sessions and cookies is that your session will only send that unique ID back and forth between your client and your server. And your server uses this unique ID to sort of remember who you are. Because remember, the communication between your client and your server is stateless. And so while we use session or some other type of storage to maintain some kind of state. So we can, for example, have your browser remember your login details the next time you go to visit one of your favorite site. And let me clip a few things as well. When I say client, I'm referring to your browser. And when I say stateless, what I mean is nothing is saved. Once you close that browser, that session dies. So cookie is no longer a good practice, because all that information that contains in the cookie gets sent back and forth. And it's vulnerable to sort of interception by them bad people out there who want to try and steal the information. So we no longer use cookie, we use session, because all that data of yours is stored on a server. And it's a lot more difficult to actually get that information. Not that session is completely safe. It's not, but it's safer than cookie, and how you implement it in your project will determine how safe it is. So cookies is not completely dead, because we still use it in some context. For example, we use cookies to store your session ID, and that's pretty much all we do with cookies these days, just to store your session ID, so we can get that when you visit that site again. It then sends that request back to your server, so your server can sort of say, oh yeah, I remember who you are, here you go. So in layman terms, that's what session is. It's a way of storing information or storing information about a user, so we can retrieve that info, but doing it in a more secure way than cookies. We're not sending that info back and forth through the browser so anyone can see it. It's stored securely in the server, and we basically send requests and you get back a response. So hope you guys get that. It's dead simple in terms of what it's doing. So first thing first, we're going to come over here and we're going to create our session directory. So I'm going to call it session, and I'm going to start off with some couple of files. The first one I'm going to name is session.php, and we got a session interface.php, and we got our session factory. And hope you can see the pattern that's going on here. We're sort of like using the factory pattern to sort of like create our objects. And like what I've been doing before, a new directory called exception. I've got a next one that's going to be called storage. And yeah, so let's sort of like start building out these interface. As you know, we're designing by interface, so it makes it easy to sort of like extend later on, or we'll come to sort of like add different bits in. We can do that because we're designing by interface, and that's the basic pattern of how I've gone about sort of like putting this project together. So PHP, again, declare strict type because we're doing type hinting. Namespace, remember that is magma, and now we're in the session directory. So it's going to be an interface, and it's going to be called session interface. Right, so I'm going to list out some method that we're going to implement. I'm not going to put no metadata on it. I'll do that off screen. So I'm not, wasting time, because I'm trying to fly through this as quickly as possible whilst trying to sort of like make you understand what I'm doing at the same time. So the metadata bit is something I'm going to do off screen, and it will be pushed to GitHub when we're finished. So first method is going to be a public function, and it's going to be set, and this is going to be a void because it's got no return, and it's contained two arguments. And the first one is going to be a string, which is going to be the key, and the second argument is the value. And this hasn't got a data type because it's a mix. It could be of any value, so we'll just leave it as it is until PHP 8 comes out. Then we'll come back and revisit this and put and type int it. So second method will be public function, and it's going to be set array. And again, this is going to take two arguments. One's a string, and the next is the value. And this again returns void. Third argument, public function, and it's going to be get. And this will take two arguments. It'll be a string, key, and it's got a default which I'm going to set to null. I won't set the return type on this just yet. It'll be a public function again, which is our fourth method within this interface, and this is going to be delete, and it's going to take one argument, and it's going to be the string. Well, it's going to take one argument, which is a string. It's going to be key, and this is going to return a bool because it's either going to be successful or a fail. And the fifth method is invalidate, and this is going to be a void, and it's currently got no arguments, so it's just a single method that does or carry out a single task. Public function, it's going to be flush, and this takes two arguments. It'll be the string and value. And the last method in this interface is going to be as, and this just sort of like check if we got a session that exists. And again, this is a boolean. It just checks whether we got a key or not, and key, and it returns bool. Right, so that's our basic session interface. Contains 7 methods. So I'm going to actually go into the storage directory. I'm going to create the storage interface, because in order to like create these methods or to populate them, we need our storage interface. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create that interface, list out all the methods within that interface. Then we're going to jump back to our session class and sort of like start building that out. So storage, create a new file called session storage interface.php, and I'll say PHP. I'm gonna say declare strict types, namespace, magma, session, and now we're within the storage directory, so we need to say storage. I'm gonna say interface, it's gonna be session storage interface. And the difference is, I can, for me personally, I can tell the difference because I've now got a bigger sort of like field of vision to working. I can actually type a little bit faster. So this has turned out to be a lot better in terms of the settings for OBS. I can actually see myself a lot. Not that I couldn't see before, but now I can see much clearer. And this is going to contain quite a few methods. So the first one is going to be public, and it's going to be set session name, and that's going to take a string, which is the session name, and that's going to return void. Again, no return type. We need to put function here because it's a function. Public function, get session name. It's gonna be a string. Actually, this ain't got a argument. It's just a method that just gets that name, but it will return a string. Public function, set session ID, and that takes session ID, which could be an int session ID. That method returns void. And public function is get session ID. Right, so we've got set session ID, which takes in an integer, so it should be returning an integer. Let's build these out first, and then let's see what we want to return with it. So we're going to revisit this. Fifth method, public function, and it's going to be set session, and this is going to take two arguments, be string, which is the key, and again value, which is of a mixed data type. It could be integer, could be a string, could even be an array. So again, when PHP 8 comes out, we're going to be revisiting these and sort of like typing them out properly. Public function is set array, is that what it's called? Set array session, and this also takes two arguments, which is quite similar to the first one, set session. We've got set session array. When I'm building this out, I'll explain to you what it is. So it's a key value, and this again just returns void. We got public function, we got get session. Again, this got two arguments, which is a string, key, and it's got a default. Again, default is of a mixed data type, so we've not typed into it because it's got a mixed data type at the minute. I'm gonna set that to null, so we don't have to use that second argument. Once it's been set to null, we can simply just use the first argument and it will not throw an error. And again, we'll leave the return type for now. Public function is delete session, and this takes one argument, which is the key, and it returns a bool or a boolean, however you want to call it. Public function, and we got as session, and this also returns true or false through a boolean. This takes one argument, which is that key. Semicolon. PHP requires semicolon. You know, I personally have no issue with it, but a lot of developers do, because, well, hence why they sort of like slag PHP off. I've got no issue writing semicolons. It's fine with me. And we should put up here public function and that invalidate method. And I said that returns void. Right, and let's try and lay that. Well, doesn't really matter. So let's put this next one in, public function flush, and that also takes two arguments. My apologies. It's key, and set a default to null. Again, the default variable is a mixed data type, so we don't type int it for now, because it's going to throw a lot of errors. So this is our session interface, or our session storage interface. So we should probably now start looking at creating our session class and start populating them. Let's just close some of these files for now. Got our interface right there, so let's start putting these together. So got PHP declare strict types equal 1. We got namespace. It's gonna be magma session. Got a session which implements that session interface, which is right here. Let's bring that in. Use magma session interface. Right, so now we're bringing in this interface within our session, and this error means that we need to implement all the method that we've laid out. So not to worry about that. And let's create a protected property, and I'm going to call it protected. I'm going to say session storage interface. I'm going to call it storage. Right, now this class contains a constructor method, because we need to pass in, so or inject some dependencies from our factory. So we're going to create a next property. Actually, I'm going to call it protected, and this is going to be a string, and call it session name. So I'm going to create our constructor method. Public function construct. Right, and we're going to pass in string, which is going to be session name, and I'm going to bring in our session storage interface. I'm going to say storage. If I can spell what's going on. Storage, and I'm going to equal that to null. Right, so I'm going to sort of like say, if I want to check that we've got a session name when it comes in, because we're trying to identify our sessions, and we're going to do that by giving each session a name. So I want to make sure that we've got a session name before we do anything else. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to actually create a private method that's going to do all our check for us. So I'm going to say is session key valid, say session name, so that if it's not valid, then we're going to throw a new exception, and we'll call the session in valid argument exception, which we have not created yet, so we can actually go ahead and actually create that. Call it session invalid argument exception.php, and let's just quickly bootstrap this out. Declare strict types equal 1, namespace magma session, and we're in the exception directory. And say class, this is called session invalid argument exception, and we're going to extend invalid argument exception like that, and we'll leave it at that for now. Let's bring it into our class. Oh, we've got it up here already, so that's fine. I'm just going to say session name concatenate is not a valid session name, right? And below that, let's sort of like pipe or properties to these constructors, constructor variables or constructor arguments. So this session name equal session name, and we want to say this storage equals storage. Let's just close that up so we get a bit more space, a bit more real estate to work with, and let's just comment this out for now. We'll sort of like build that after we finish implementing these interface method, and the first two is going to be set and set array. So they're going to be quite simple method that we're going to lay out right here. So it's going to be a public function set, and that takes in two arguments, which is key and value, and that got a void return type. All right, so I'm going to say try. I'm going to use a try catch block again, and just going to say throwable and say throwable and get the message, right? So this is going to be as simple as this storage, and it's going to be calling the set storage method in our interface, set storage, and that method is going to contain the actual function that sets that storage. I'm just going to pass in the key and the value, because if you remember our interface or storage interface, which we've got, let's bring that back up. Storage interface, this is the method that we've just called, set session, and that's the two arguments that we've just set within this class right here. Set, not set storage, it's called set session. My apologies. So set session takes in them two arguments, which is what we've just defined right here, right? And let's actually not throw a throwable, right? Let's actually throw our session exception so we can pass in a message. So I'm going to say session exception, which we've not created yet, and we're going to say an exception was thrown in retrieving the key from session storage. Let's create that new exception session exception dot php, and let's just copy this out quickly because it's going to be the same. Copy that out, paste it into here, then let's change the name to session exception. Let's change the SPO to this exception. Yeah, a little bit of cheating right there, but again, just trying to make up some time. So close that out, try and bring that in, bring it down right here, use Magma, session exception. I've got a misspelling right here, what's this? Get rid of that. To get rid of that as well. Yep, that looks cool. Yep, that's cool. So that's one method down. So let's crack on the public function. The next one is going to be set array. And this, if we open back up our interface, this takes 2 arguments and this also returns void. So I'm going to set the void, the return type to void, open close brackets or curly braces, say string, key, and value. And again, our trusty old try catch block. Oh, go away. Catch. And we're going to be throwing the same exception up here, or throwable. Then we're going to throw or re-throw our exception. So I'm going to throw session exception, just down here. I'm going to use a new keyword. And what can we say about this one? We can actually use the same thing right here. We can also put a space there and concatenate that throwable. Could do the same thing for up here as well. Alright. And again, we're going to return, or not return, we're going to say this storage set array. And again, simple as passing in the arguments. Set array. Let's go set array session. My bad again. Set array session. So this storage, which is referring to our storage interface, we're getting the method from that storage interface and calling it right here and passing in the arguments. So next method is public function. You can get the idea that the storage interface is what's doing the bulk of the work. We're simply just delegating that off from our session class. The next method is, let's close that, is our get method. Get and 2 argument key and value. Again, our try catch block. Be a throwable. New session exception. And again, these messages, they sound very so like the same, so I will actually leave it for now and I will come back and do one message that will just fit into all of them. So we're going to say this storage, and it's get session I'm going to pass in that key and that value, right? And we'll actually want to return this get, because these one up top, we're sort of like setting it and we're getting these values back. So we want to actually return the actual session. What we got right here? That wasn't valid, that was default, and that was equal to null, right? And we're passing in the default right here. I think the screen getting too big is sort of making me feel like I'm rushing a little bit. I promise I'm not. We're gonna go through it properly. The public function, and it's going to be delete, and that was a bool, and that contain one argument, which is the key. And what we want to say is, and get our try catch, this will be a throwable, and throw a new session exception. Again, we're going to pass a message in a bit. This delete method is going to be this storage delete session. I'm going to pass that key in. Then we're going to come down to what other method have we got in here? We've done set array, get, delete, and we've got invalidate. The public function invalidate, and this didn't have any arguments, and I think it also got a void as the return type. And what we're going to be doing with this is simple. This storage, and we're going to call that invalidate method within our session storage. That's as simple as it is. And you might see that there's no try catch block around this particular method. Is in my idea, I'm not passing no arguments in, so there's not much potential for errors. So hence why I'm doing try catch block in this method, because if you're going to be passing values in, there's chances that you might throw something in that shouldn't be there, and you got an error. So we're trying to catch that so we can display that message diligently to you guys, or to whoever is using the application. I might be wrong, but that's my idea behind it. And what other method have we got? We got the flush. Let's deal with that one. Public function flush, and that took two methods. I think it's the string key, and it's got that default, which is equal to null. Right, I'm gonna jump back to my try catch block, and I'm gonna do a throwable. I'm going to throw new session exception, and again we'll pass in a message in a bit, and this is going to just say this storage flush, pass that key and default value in. And what have we got here? Flush. Actually, it's not a default. Again, value. Right, and I think the last method that we got in here is the as method. Public function as, and this was a bool, and it take one argument in, which was the key, which is a string. And all we're going to do again is we're going to say return this storage, and it's called as session in that session storage interface. Again, that's what we're referring to with this storage as session interface. Pass that key in. So that's as simple as our main session class is, because it's pretty much delegating all the work to the session interface or to the session storage interface, which is what's doing the actual implementation of the sessions. So that's pretty much what we're going to be jumping onto right now. So again, we've got all our methods in, and we said about we needed to implement this is session key valid. So let's jump ahead and implement that. So I'm going to actually do our next protected property, but this is going to be a constant. It's going to be a protected constant, and I'm going to declare a pattern. I'm going to call it session pattern, and the idea behind this is it's going to check that whatever session then that we're passing in applies a certain rule going to apply to that. So it has to be letters between A and Z, capital and common, and numbers between 0 to 9. Yeah, so that's the only character we're letting in. We're not letting in no other special characters, because then we're going to class it as invalid. We're only saying this is what you could name your session name as. So I'm going to say / and okay, I'm looking for that one. No, actually caret. Say A to Z, and capital A to capital Z. Then we need 0 to 9. We're gonna let in an underscore, backtick 1.64. What have I done wrong here? Yeah, I need to close that out, don't I? I must be honest. A regular expression is not my strongest point. I just know enough to actually get what I want to get done. So again, we're probably going to be going through regular expression, in terms of what I know or what we can actually learn together in a future video. So just know that this is the expression that I need to make sure that the key that we're putting in validates to what we want it to be. So if I scroll down, I'm going to create a couple of methods that's going to do some checks. And the first one I'm going to create is that is session valid method. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to say it's a protected method function, say is session valid, and that takes in that key, or it takes in a key, yep, and it returns true or false, boolean. All we're going to do is return. I'm going to use that pregmatch method, PHP method. I'm going to call that session pattern constant, and we're going to sort of like match it up with that key. We need to do key equal 1, which is true. So we're saying if it's valid, then return it true. Then I'm going to say protected function. Let's give this a nice name. Let's say ensure session key is valid. Right? Yeah. And that's got no return type. It's just going to be a void method. I'm going to say if if this is session key, should be session valid. If session is valid, so you pass that key in, we'll throw a new session invalid argument, and we're going to say key is not a valid session key, right? Something like that. And this obviously need that argument that we're going to pass in. So we're saying if the session key is not valid, then throw an exception, right? Session key is not a valid session key, so we're going to throw that exception. So we need to be sort of like just numbers and letters between, numbers between 0 to 9 and letters between A to Z, capital or common. So these are the two helper methods that we're going to use. So if I go back up into the constructor, I can actually undo this, and I can see that I've got an error already, because this is called session key valid, and that's not what I call it down here. So let's go and fix that. Let's copy and paste that there, copy and paste that there. Oops. It should be right here. Paste. Right. So what we want to go back and do is, what's this? Is session key valid. Expecting, yep, sorry, my bad. So we're gonna go back and actually do something like this. Ensure session key is valid. I'm gonna put this method in all the method that contains a key. So I'm just gonna copy that and put it down here and put it right here. Just a simple error checking. Put it right here, even in here as well. And I think the only method that hasn't got this checking is this invalidate method, because this doesn't contain an argument. So save that, and you can see this is pretty much our session class 99% complete. Again, because we're building it as we go along, we're gonna test it, make sure that it actually works, and make changes along the way, so you guys can see how we do all of that. I'm gonna be doing it together.